I was just supposed to deliver a package. Room 1204. Easy money, right? But the door was unlocked. And when I stepped inside, my heart stopped. He was lying there, half naked, covered in tattoos that looked like they were alive. He wasn't just a man, he was Nathaniel Hyun, the most feared crime boss in the city. I should have run. I should have called for help. But as our eyes met, I realized something terrifying. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to see exactly how dangerous this mistake could get. The hallway was quiet, smelling of expensive lilies and floor wax. I looked at the gold numbers on the door, 1204. My hands were shaking a little as I held the small, heavy box. I swiped the key the front desk gave me. It clicked. The door opened slowly, revealing a room filled with shadows and the scent of sandalwood. I stepped inside, expecting a businessman in a suit. Instead, I saw him. Nathaniel Hyun was lying on top of the covers. He was only wearing black boxers. His skin was like bronze, decorated with dark dragon tattoos that wound around his muscles. He looked powerful, like a lion resting before a hunt. I stood there, frozen. I am Lizzy Daniels, 36 years old and bold, but this sight took my breath away. He was dangerously handsome. His eyes were closed, and he looked almost peaceful. I noticed the way his body was built, strong and hard. Suddenly, his eyes snapped open. They were dark and sharp, locking onto mine instantly. He didn't jump or act surprised. He just watched me. I felt a heat rush through my body that had nothing to do with the weather. "You aren't the maid," he said. His voice was a deep rumble that I felt in my chest. I have a delivery," I whispered. I knew I was in the wrong room. The air was thick with tension. Instead of apologizing and running, I felt a spark of my old street girl spirit. I leaned against the doorframe and smiled. "But I think I might be the best delivery you've had all day." Nathaniel didn't move. He just watched me with an unreadable expression. Most people would be terrified of him. He is the king of the underworld, a man who controls the city with a flick of his wrist. He lives in a world of bulletproof cars, private jets, and silver spoons. But to me, in this moment, he was just a man. A very attractive, very powerful man. I walked closer to the bed, letting my eyes wander over his tattoos. "Room 1204, I said softly. "The front desk must have made a mistake, or maybe it was fate." Nathaniel sat up slowly. Every movement was smooth and controlled. He didn't hide his body. He was proud and dominant. "I don't believe in fate, Lizzy," he said. My heart skipped a beat when he used my name. He must have seen it on my delivery badge. "I believe in results, and right now you are a very interesting result." He reached out and grabbed my wrist. His grip was firm but not painful. It felt like a brand. I am usually emotionally unguarded, letting my heart lead the way, and right now, my heart was screaming to stay. I leaned into him, letting the package drop to the floor. The world outside the hotel room disappeared. There was only the smell of his skin and the dark promise in his eyes. That night was like a sweet ride to heaven. I have been with men before, but Nathaniel was different. It was like he was a hunter and I was the prize. When we were together, I felt like I was being translated into another planet. My strength, forged from years on the streets, met his power in a way that was explosive. He seemed obsessed with me from the very first touch. He told me later that my energy was out of this world. Every time we climaxed, it was multiple times, leaving us both gasping for air. For a crime boss who was usually emotionally restrained, he was vocal and intense behind closed doors. But as the sun began to peek through the curtains, the reality of who he was started to settle in. Nathaniel Hyun wasn't just a lover. He was a man with a dark past. He never talked about his parents or how he got those scars beneath his tattoos. He lived in a fortress of secrets. "You should go," he whispered, his face turning back into a mask of stone. "Before my world finds you." "Your world?" I asked, pulling the sheets around me. "My world doesn't play fair, Lizzy, and you are a weakness I can't afford." He looked away, but I saw the pain in his eyes. There was a mystery here, something deep and cold, and I was determined to find out what it was. Over the next week, I couldn't get him out of my head. I went back to my small apartment, but it felt empty. Then the messages started. Not texts, but gifts. A black rose on my doorstep. A silk scarf in my mailbox. No notes, just the scent of sandalwood. I knew he was watching me, but I also felt someone else. A cold shadow was following me through the streets. Conflict was rising. Nathaniel's enemies knew about the wrong room incident. They saw me as a target. One night, a black car pulled up beside me. Two men in suits stepped out. "Mr. Hyun wants to see you," they said. Their voices were like ice. They took me to a massive estate outside the city. It was a palace of glass and steel. Nathaniel was standing by a fireplace, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked stressed. "I told you to stay away," he growled, but he didn't move to push me away when I walked toward him. "You kept sending gifts," I challenged. "Those weren't from me," he said, and my blood turned to ice. "Those were from my second in command. He's trying to see if I've gone soft. He thinks you are my undoing." The tension in the room was so thick I could barely breathe. Nathaniel was fighting a war inside his own house, and I was right in the middle of it. The situation exploded at a high-end gala. Nathaniel insisted I go with him. He wanted to show his men that he wasn't hiding. I wore a red dress that cost more than my car. I felt beautiful, but I felt like a lamb walking into a den of wolves. As we walked through the crowd, people whispered. They looked at me with disgust. To them, I was just a girl from the streets who had tricked a king. Nathaniel held my hand tightly, his face a mask of dominance. Suddenly, his second in command, a man named Minho, stepped forward. He held a microphone and signaled for the music to stop. "A toast," Minho shouted, his eyes gleaming with hate. "To our leader, who has forgotten his duty for a delivery girl, a girl who was sent to his room as a joke by the very enemies we are supposed to fight." The room went silent. I felt a wave of public humiliation wash over me. Everyone was staring, mocking me. Minho pulled up a video on a large screen. It was a grainy shot of me entering the hotel room. "She didn't walk into the wrong room by accident," Minho lied to the crowd. "She was paid to spy on him." I looked at Nathaniel. My heart was breaking. I expected him to throw me out. I expected him to believe the lie, but he just stepped closer to me, his presence filling the room like a dark cloud. Nathaniel didn't say a word to the crowd. He just walked up to Minho and took the microphone. His voice was low and dangerous. "You think you can humiliate her?" Nathaniel asked. "You think you can humiliate me?" He turned to the crowd. "Lizzy Daniels is not a spy. She is the only thing in this room that is real, and if any of you breathe a word against her again, you will answer to me." He dragged me out of the gala and into his car. I was crying, the shame still burning my cheeks. "Why did you do that? They all hate me now." "Let them hate," he snapped. "I've spent my whole life being what they wanted, a cold machine, a crime boss with no heart, but then you walked into that room." He looked at me, and for the first time, the mask fully dropped. "There is something you need to know, Lizzy, a major shocking reveal about that night." "What is it?" I whispered. "The wrong room. It wasn't a mistake by the hotel. It was a setup, but not by my enemies. It was a setup by one of my own men who wanted to ruin me, but he chose the wrong girl. Because instead of ruining me, you saved me." We drove to a quiet spot overlooking the city. Nathaniel sat close to me, his hand resting on my neck. The air was cool, but I felt warm beside him. "I have a secret, Lizzy," he said softly. "My parents, they didn't die in an accident. They were taken out by the very men I now lead. I took over the syndicate to destroy it from the inside. I've been living a lie for 20 years. I gasped. The powerful crime boss was actually a man on a mission of revenge. This was the hidden mystery. He had been so emotionally restrained because he couldn't trust anyone. "And that night in the hotel," I asked, "my man, the one who gave you the wrong key, thought I would be angry. He thought I would kill you, and then the police would come for me. He wanted me out of the way so he could take over." Nathaniel laughed darkly. "He didn't realize that the moment I saw you, I stopped being a crime boss and started being a man again. He gave me the greatest gift of my life, thinking it would be my death." This major shocking reveal changed everything. Our encounter wasn't just a sweet ride. It was the turning point in a 20-year war. Nathaniel had been trying to woo me ever since because I was the only person who saw him as Nathaniel, not as the Reaper. The emotional climax happened at his estate the next morning. Nathaniel called his top men together. He was done hiding. He revealed how he had been trying to woo me, showing them that he was a man of passion, not just a man of stone. "One of you tried to set me up," Nathaniel shouted. "You gave a package delivery girl the wrong room number. You thought she would be my downfall." He pulled me to his side. "But she is my strength. Whenever we are together, I am a better man. She has a strength that is out of this world." He looked at Minho, who was trembling. "I know it was you. You ordered the package. You gave her the key. You wanted me in prison." Nathaniel didn't kill him. He was tired of the blood. He had Minho stripped of his rank and thrown out. Then he turned to me in front of everyone. "Lizzy Daniels, I am obsessed with you. Not because of how you look, but because of how you make me feel. I don't want to be a crime boss anymore. I want to be yours." It was a sweet, powerful moment. The Reaper was gone. In his place was the man I loved. He had turned a trap into a treasure. A few months later, life was very different. Nathaniel stepped down from the syndicate, handing the power over to a man he finally trusted to keep the peace. He used his billions to start foundations for kids on the streets, the same streets I had grown up on. We were in a new home, far away from the dark alleys of the city. I was no longer a delivery girl, but I still kept the badge from that night in a frame on the wall. "Remembering your mistakes?" Nathaniel asked, walking up behind me. He was shirtless, his tattoos still as vibrant as ever. He wrapped his arms around my waist. "It was the best mistake I ever made," I said, leaning back into his strength. We were sitting in the garden one afternoon. The sun was warm, and the sandalwood smell was in the air. I was sitting on the grass, letting Nathaniel draw with a marker on my arm. He was drawing a dragon that matched the one on his neck. "Is this the life you wanted?" I asked him. He looked up at me. The dragon tattoo on his arm was covered by a pink flower I had drawn earlier. He looked happy, truly happy. "I never knew I wanted this," he said. "I thought I was meant to be the storm. I thought I was meant to be alone. And now I think I'm just a man who got lucky," he said. He stood up and kissed my forehead. "The sweet ride to heaven didn't end that night, Lizzy. It just began." I looked at the man I loved. He was a beast, a beautiful, terrifying beast. But he was my beast. And looking at him, I knew my unguarded heart was exactly where it belonged. The street girl had finally found her king, and the silent Reaper had finally found his home.